Well, did you?
I did.
Greetings, everyone. Nate the Nerdarch here from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, hanging out with a nerd.
Nerdarch dead.
And today we're going to be talking about the release of Starfinder from Paizo, Pathfinder, normal Pathfinder providers.
So if you guys want, the link is in the description. If you want to head over to Amazon and get any kind of awesome Starfinder products, it is an affiliate link, so we will get a portion of that sale. But you'll still be able to get it at the Amazon great price. And there's a lot of stuff that's coming out over the next several months. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a big launch. So I'm excited because I saw the game that you were in with Cody from Taking 20 and a few other players.
Right.
And it was nice to get a sneak peek at it. And it was nice to see the different combat elements as well. Sorry.
It is. It's definitely it's definitely a Pathfinder game. It's built off of that same engine. So if you are really into the Pathfinder aspect of the role-playing games, then you're going to absolutely love Starfinder. There's some things that I don't know whether that was unique to Starfinder or whether that's the way it is in Pathfinder as well. I'm not super familiar with the game, but like when you get into like your hit points, you actually have hit points and stamina, and it's not until you actually get into like the one that's really where you're taking damage. Whereas stamina, I believe, is just your fortitude and how much energy you have. That comes back faster than the actual hit points.
Yeah, they did it in a way in which I had wished D&D 5e had did it, which is separate the concept of actual damage to your body and hit point damage that isn't actual damage to your body. So, because, they talk about how for like the first, well, I don't want to get into another game system while we're talking about this one. But anyway, I like the way Starfinder did hit points and stamina and how you gain stamina points over time as you level.
Right. So it's one of those things that like I understand that 5th edition's reason for doing it being a little bit easier and not wanting to go into that. Well, we've got 2 different things, but it would make for certain types of spells that you could say, oh well, if I want to go straight to hit point damage, that could be crazy.
Yes. So where did you want to start off with?
I figured we could talk about the fact that Starfinder does kind of sort of have a background like 5th edition has. So you've got the ability to choose a background, you have the ability to choose a race, and you have the ability to choose a class. So I figured we could go into those things so that people could, even if they don't have the book yet, we could kind of help them make their first character choices. And that'll probably round out our our hour. How do you feel about that, sir?
That sounds good to me.
So I actually have the PDF here, so we'll wind up doing some screen shares. So let's see here.
Yeah, I have to wrangle some people, so I'll be right back.
Yep. All right, so we get into character creation, and their background things they call themes. So let me grab to the right spot first. 1 second, gentlemen. And all right, here we go. So I will do a screen share. All right, so here you have what they call their themes, and you have Ace Pilot. It's as you would expect. This is going to be the type of character that is meant to be the pilot of a ship. The Star Wars FFG series, they actually have a class that's called Ace Pilot, so you could definitely go down that road. But this just kind of, all of these things kind of flavor your character in a way that's different from 5th edition. 5e says like, oh well, what did you do prior to? This is how do you want to flavor the actual class and character. Bounty hunter, that's, you know, it's gonna be what it is. You know, you're out to track people down as you would expect. Icon, you've done something of renown, so people actually know who you are. You know, so this would kind of be close to your folk hero. Now, again, all of these things will have the ability to alter your class because they give you a stat, they give you some other things. So it can really help you define your character. You have mercenary, outlaw, priest, scholar, spacefarer, xenoseeker. You know, there's a big difference between spacefarer and xenoseeker, although they might sound similar. A spacefarer is you're looking to go new places, so for you it's more about the travel and where you go, whereas the xenoseeker is more about actually making contact with, you know, new life forms and that, so it's more like charisma based, if you will. And then here's something that they found, or that they did, that, you know, is kind of unique, or, you know, new. They have themeless, so it's like, oh, you don't want a theme, here you go, you can just make your character themeless. So you're going to get a since all of them give you some kind of skill here, all right, you got, you know, gain a class skill of your choice when you create a themeless character, and you're going to be able to get an ability adjustment to anything that you want, as opposed to the other themes that give you specific stuff, and then as you gain levels, you're going to get those specific powers. Once per day before you roll a skill check, you can gain +2 bonus to that skill. Extensive studies, choose a skill that is a class skill for you once per day. You can re-roll one such skill check. You got to take the second result. And then at 18th level, increase your pool of resolve points by 1. Now, it specifically calls out that if you decide to go with a themeless character, they're telling you straight up that the stuff that you get for being themeless is less powerful than what's in those other 9 choices. So do it at your own risk. And it literally, you know, says that a themeless character is considered less powerful than a character with a theme. So choose this option with care. So I kind of thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, when they're calling it out that it's not as good. Yeah, you want to only pick that if you absolutely don't have another thing that would go well with your stuff.
Now, we'll get into this, you know, this part later. But one of the things that I thought was fantastic was during the actual class breakdowns, they actually give you, for lack of a better word, archetype. So it's like, oh, well, I want to mix, you know, this class with this theme, and this is the rulebook's derivation of what the two of them, you know, make. And I kind of thought that was really awesome, because then while looking through the classes, you could be like, oh, well, here's an idea for a character, and each of them already has a picture right there. So if you really love what's right there, you could be like, okay, well, I've got my race, my class, and my theme picked just from looking at that. What was your opinion on that, Nate?
I actually really enjoyed the complexity of it, that you had a theme that pretty much felt like it could have been a class as well, but they didn't. I like that they didn't attach. I like how, for example, like an ace pilot doesn't have to be a fighting class.
Right.
You could be an ace pilot and be an icon, like a diplomat or something like that, or some other. Well, no, I might be getting. I have to look at the rule book. But you know, like a mechanic. You could be a pilot and a mechanic, or you could be any of the other actual classes and be an ace pilot. So it was. I always dislike how some future games would do that, where it was kind of like, you know, the fighting class had an archetype that was the ace pilot, and it's like, well, what if you just really like ships and you want to be a pilot and you also happen to do X, Y, or Z? Right. So it's a nice mix, because that means you can have an ace pilot that is, you know, 5 or 6 things, and then you could also have an icon that's 5 or 6 things. And So you actually have a lot of classes available to you if you think about a theme married to an actual class as being a separate like class in and of itself.
Right. So was there a particular theme that you that you really relished, or you were like, oh, for my first character, I'd prefer to go down this road?
I don't know, I liked a lot of them.
Okay.
I did like a lot of different ones. I kind of thought it was going to be interesting to check out, I think the icon theme.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm still getting used to using this book, so it's like for the screen share, the icon is one of the themes, right? It's not a class.
Right.
Yes. So,
So
I like
for
the icon. I was like, oh, this would be interesting to kind of play this kind of person going through life and being able to be recognized by people, and how that's actually good and bad at the same time.
well, I mean that's always the case. There's nothing's ever a win-win situation. Now, like for the game that I did, with Owen and the other YouTube personalities, I was a spacefarer, and that's what I'm looking at here. So for becoming a spacefarer, that choice, it's going to give you +1 to Constitution. That's set. First level, you get theme knowledge. You're obsessed with distant worlds, and you always mentally catalog everything you learn about new and strange places that you can recall it when you need it most. Additionally, you can use your knowledge of biology and topology to inure yourself to alien hazards, reduce the DC of physical science checks to recall knowledge about strange new worlds or features of space by 5. Physical science is a class skill for you, though if it is a class skill from the class you take at first level, you instead gain a +1 bonus to physical science checks. In addition, you gain an ability adjustment of +1 to Constitution at character creation. And again, that's noted, up above, here. So, and then of course, as with the themeless thing, you get a bonus at 6th level, 12th level, 18th level. So I kind of thought that was pretty interesting. Whereas your 5th edition characters, when you choose a background, like none of it's giving you any stat bonuses. It's giving you some mechanical stuff and some role play stuff. Like there's no role play feature here per se. It's you're getting bonuses for this choice. You're getting bonuses on your skills.
Well, it's kind of like the RP happens because of the direction in which, like, for an icon, for example, there's, as you level up, you become more and more, I guess, well known. And what happens is, over time, that causes certain things to mechanically happen, but it's going to cause certain things to happen just in general. I mean, like walking down the street, they talk about like how you will just be recognized by a certain number of people, just like as based on like the level of you as an icon. And that just completely transforms that character's interaction with the world. Right. So I'm not even interested in like, I don't care that I get a plus or something. I like all the, it's like, taking a feature and getting some like henchmen that don't do anything except hold your stuff. That's cool. You mean nothing else gives you that. Like, so in this case, nothing else is going to give you that kind of that celebrity status, well known for some kind of field. I mean, you can marry that to whatever field you are. So if you're a mechanic and you're an icon, maybe you developed something or made a new AI that does a particular, XYZ. I mean, like, we know, a lot of people know who made Facebook,
right,
and could recognize him. But he's like a nerd that coded stuff and had an idea for what he wanted to do, and he did it. So like that kind of, you could be an icon and be that, depending on your class, depending on your history and stuff like that. So that's all. So it's not RP in the sense. It's not like following one of the pillars of, this is just for role play. There's a lot of benefits that you get in game. And that's what I noticed the big difference between Pathfinder and Starfinder and things like 5th edition is that you have 5th edition just kind of like will say something but then not give a statistical benefit. And a lot of times Pathfinder and now Starfinder, you're seeing like all the icon stuff, they're all RP stuff, but they also give you a statistical benefit like 10% discount at places and things of that nature. And that is just showing like the mathematics of the natural progression of RP for the icon.
So looking at the icon then, since you keep mentioning it.
I like it a lot. I don't even know what I'd play it with. I just know I want to be that, and then like, because it seems like it's like you're giving a positive and a negative. You're getting a situation.
And we kind of glossed over the stats, like the previous editions of D&D. This follows the suit of Pathfinder, where races still have statistical negatives during character creation. Mm-hmm. So we'll get into that more when we get into races. But so icon, thanks to interstellar transmissions and drift travel, the galaxy is smaller than ever, and this connectivity has facilitated your ascension to celebrity status. You might be a famous performer or a celebrated scientist, but either way, you get recognized on the packed worlds and in associated systems. Your reasons for traveling to unknown worlds might be to further spread your acclaim or to escape the limelight. So you get a +1 to charisma, as one would expect, and then choose a profession skill. You are hooked deeply into the culture of your iconic profession. When attempting a profession or culture check to recall knowledge about other icons of your profession or details about your profession's cultural aspects, increase the DC by 5. You gain +1 bonus to checks of your chosen profession skill. Culture also becomes a class skill for you, though if it's already a skill, you get a +1 bonus to it. In addition, you gain an ability adjustment to your charisma score. So I think that is kind of cool. And as you said, later on, people begin to automatically notice you. And as we do screen shares, just check out the really fantastic art. I'm a big fan of just about every single piece of artwork that's in this book.
Yes, they did such a good job on the clothing, because I like whenever I see sci-fi stuff, I'm like, all right, how much effort did they think about, like they put into thinking about like making this look futuristic or making this look outside of the norm of the way normal fashion on Earth is. And I think they did a fantastic job of that.
Right. So we actually got a question from Zereft Gaming, and he wants to know like what separates Starfinder from other sci-fi role-playing games like Fantasy Flight, Star Wars. So that's a really big question. So I would say like every single game that I'm aware of that does, hey, it's space. So whether you're talking about, rifts, in space, whether you're talking about Fantasy Flight, Star Wars, whether you're talking about, D&D Spelljammer, whether you're talking about, Starfinder, or whether you're talking about, any of the other derivations thereof, that you could just use a blanket rule set like Cypher System, Fate. Every single one of those rule sets is just completely different. So if you want to play, D&D and put it in space, you could ignore all of the aspects of technology because we don't have any technology rules for 5th edition. If you want to get into, the nitty-gritty of Star Wars, you can do so, and you can do so with a very complex dice mechanic, and it requires the real knowledge of that dice, and you have to be able to you have to think outside the box with Star Wars in a very particular manner. And we've used this example, or I've used this example before, but I'm playing in a Star Wars game. It's kind of been on hold for the last month and a half, but my character is a mechanic. He's the ship's engineer. When things go bad, he's got to fix it. Well, we're in an Imperial ship, and we're trying, on a mission for the Alliance, and we're trying to destroy a series of prototype TIE fighters. Now I'm I'm dexterous, I'm intelligent, but I don't have any heavy weapons because I don't have the strength to wield them. So if I'm going to fire my blaster pistol at an advanced TIE fighter, I'm not going to do enough damage to actually make make any kind of note of damage on it. So I was like, okay, well, I don't know what I can actually do. So Mike, the DM, steps up and says, oh, well, there's an access panel right here. You can make a mechanics check or a computers check, and have a crane pick up a crate and drop it on the ship. It's like, oh, well, I'll do that then.
My most powerful attack is now crane attack.
So I get to do that, and sure enough, I roll well enough with the dice. I have a 4 intellect. Difficulty was only 3. I completely break the ship. Yes, Bill, but while I do have a mechanic of Bunny, my Star Wars character and Bunny, I think, are vastly different types of characters.
Are they both named Bunny?
No.
Okay.
I actually, it's been so long since I played my Star Wars dude. I could not tell you what his name is off the top of my head. I think we've only played like 2 sessions, maybe 3, but either way. So the dice and the mechanics of Star Wars, the leveling of Star Wars, make it a vastly different rule set and game that you couldn't have those kind of things happen in Pathfinder. You're not going to have people say, oh, well, can I attack this guy with my intelligence while using my sword? That's just not that's just not the way it goes. Yes, love you too, Bill. I know you're just messing. So like it doesn't matter it doesn't matter what the rule set is. You can play any kind of style game, but the rule set does dictate the flow of events and how you handle certain problems. So that's to me, Zaref's Gaming, how Star Wars and Starfinder are going to be vastly different. The way you go about dealing with challenges, the way the system interacts with all of the different elements of the game. I think if you had an adventuring party in both rule sets, and you asked, okay, Starfinder players, how are you going to handle this situation? And if you ask the Star Wars, players, how are you going to handle this situation? While yes, combat might be an angle, even how combat handles is going to be different. But I think you're going to get 2 different, distinct sets of options to deal with that problem.
All right, David Bliss. So, is Starfinder hard to understand as someone who has only played D&D? Okay, I would say Starfinder, like Pathfinder, is a big commitment ahead of time in making your character, especially if you want to take in the big sweeping scope of all the things you could do. So I would say what makes I would say Starfinder and Pathfinder both easier to understand and very similar to D&D is if you think of a concept you want to play and then say, all right, talk to somebody who's more experienced and say, how do I play this type of character I want to play in Pathfinder or Starfinder? So, because like I was looking, like I'm thinking of playing an icon. I'm like, well, I only saw one thing in the, and then I think it's the Mystic. It's like Memory Palace or something like that. It's like, all right. I mean, I already kind of knew I liked Mystics, so heck, why not? So my first character that I play in Starfinder whenever we play is gonna be an icon Mystic, and that's just, I don't even care how, I don't care if that +1 charisma actually matters for the Mystic class. I don't know. It doesn't matter because the type of character I'm gonna play is gonna be, a major part of the game for me rather than, 1 extra plus or 1 extra minus. And I guess if it's easy to play if you're not a gamist about it, I guess is what I'm going to say about it. Because otherwise, if you're gamist and you're super into the plus grit, like getting as many pluses on something and super optimizing a character, you could spend months trying to design a character, and learning the game. But if you're just into playing a character concept and you just play it within the rules that are present, I think it's a lot easier to go around. It's really overwhelming to try and learn an entire rule book series. It's kind of like the first time you maybe played D&D, you might have got stuck playing a fighter or a thief or something, because it's easier to just roll dice and interact with hit points and stuff like that, rather than also try and learn spells and figure out how spell mechanics work and all that kind of stuff and how many spells you get. That would normally be included if you're like, oh, well, you can play any of these series of classes. So similarly, you know, Starfinder can be, I think, really overwhelming if you're trying to take everything in the book and figure out what you wanted to play out of that.
So
rather than think of an idea and then try and find the rule that fits your idea.
So my you know, answer to David is, it is going to be more complex for you to pick it up, but the fact that you know some of the core from 5th edition, it's built on some similarities. You know, Pathfinder is built off of the engine of D&D's 3.5, and then Starfinder is built on top of Pathfinder. Now, I am not going to say in any way, shape, or form, I am not an expert on Pathfinder. I've only played like 3 or 4 sessions of it, and that was, you know, years ago. So I have no expertise there. I did play 3.5 for about 10 years, long time ago. So there is some things that I'm familiar with and some things that I'm not. Now, Starfinder is, you know, brand new. I did get to play a session of it, which was, you know, fantastic. And I think that the other guys who made characters, I think they put more, you know, knit and grit into making a well-designed character. I went with, this sounds like fun, and I made this dude because that's what I'm used to for 5th edition. And I don't feel my character was as useful to the rest of the party, although I had a blast playing. So for me, that's all that matters. So if you want to get in, I would suggest, as Nate says, you make a character and see how it goes, and then you'll slowly learn, you know, what is different from Starfinder from 5th edition, and you'll pick up things as you go. And playing is usually the best way to learn. I know it is for me. Just sitting there reading a rule book is not as much fun as, okay, how do I do X? How can I do such and such? And somebody who knows the game kind of spells it out, and then you kind of get clarifications, and you know, well, why it works that way or how it works that way, and you research as you're going. So, do we want to get into races?
I believe so. That would be good. If we do a little bit of, you know, we talked about the icons. I say let's go into races, and then we can kind of like try and talk with classes a little bit
before we end this.
Before we run out of time, we could do like a 5-hour stream probably on the intro to Pathfinders, to Starfinder stuff.
Well, and we're probably going to do some more Starfinder videos over the next several weeks to really share stuff out. So if you're looking for more, you know, in-depth stuff, you know, feel free to stay tuned. We'll get into it. So you have 7 races to choose from within the Starfinder book. Now, depending upon, you know, how much of you want to get into Galarion, or however you want to pronounce that, and the world that, you know, mysteriously disappeared, you know, your DM might allow you to play, you know, more of the Pathfinder stereotypical races, but I don't think they're going to be, you know, completely balanced into the Starfinder system, because they're not incorporated within the technology and what have you. So,
you know, you want to play Drow in space, Ted. You know, you want to play Drow in space.
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of really great races within these. So
that's true.
You've got androids. You know, as you can, you know, see on the list here. I tried to actually get the Starfinder, you know, picture as our thumbnail, but, you know, Dave's the one that normally does this stuff, and I just haven't learned the ins and the outs that he does. But you've got androids, as you would expect. It's a part mechanical, part biological, and you were created by humans, but you're now free to do as you want. We've got humans, as you would expect, because humans are everywhere, and it says so right there. Found nearly anywhere in the Pact Worlds. Now the rest of these things, I'm probably going to butcher what the proper pronunciation is. So feel free to correct me if you know that I'm wrong. So we have Kasathas, and it's an ancient four-armed race from a distant star system. They're pretty cool, and it does specifically call out that, hey, you've got 4 arms, but that doesn't give you any more actions to do stuff. So I thought that was pretty cool. You've got Lashuntas, naturally gifted psychics divided into 2 sub-races, one tall and lean, the other short and powerful. Excuse me. So they kind of have a sub-race system set up similar to 5th edition.
Well, and they've got a really interesting thing. They're actually, it's one race, but they have like this genetic dimorphism based on situation.
Right.
So like the environment can actually shape the type of subspecies you become. Pretty interesting.
Absolutely. So then we've got Shirans. This is the first time I'm ever actually seeing an insect race that doesn't have lots of hard consonants in the name. I don't know if that's appealing to anybody else, but I thought it was worth mentioning. Once part of a terrifying hive mind that devoured all in its path, the insectile Shirans mutated and broke away to become independent but community-minded individuals addicted to the freedom of choice. So Shirans and Lashuntas both have access to telepathy. So I kind of thought that was pretty neat. 5th edition kind of, with the Warlock one pact gives you access to telepathy, but now we're actually seeing it at a race level, which I thought was pretty cool.
I like that it actually is more than one. It basically, where it was appropriate, they had telepathy rather than being like, oh, we'll just have this one race be like the mystic race, and then that's it.
Right.
Which is normally what happens in sci-fi stuff. But I like to see it different.
Which is funny because while it says they're naturally gifted psychics, there is no psionics or psychic abilities in the actual core rulebook. So I thought that was amusing. We have Vesk.
I did not.
Well, I know you didn't find it amusing. I know you always want to play that type. Well, not always want to play, but you're drawn to that type of character. We have Vesk. Here's your reptilian race. They're strong. They're powerful. They're resistant to fear, which is kind of cool. That's actually what I wound up playing in the promo game that I got to play. And then we have Yosoki, however you want to pronounce that one, and that's small rat people, and they are in fact small. Of the races, they're the ones that actually are size small. And had Dave actually gotten to play in the promo game instead of myself, he was actually going to play one of them, and he had this whole concept figured out of what he wanted to do with them. So, yeah, I thought that was, the races are pretty darn cool in my opinion. As many of them that I'm like, yeah, what could I do with them? How would I import them to 5th edition?
Oh yeah, especially the ones that have the dimorphism. Yeah, I like those people.
Lashuntas?
Yeah. Trying to grab my PDF. And then I'm like, oh wait, I'm not on the same page as Ted. Dang it.
So as you would expect, there's the races. They have their own breakdown, and it typically boils down to you get a +2 overall to your stats, similar to the way 5th edition leans towards in some cases. But like androids get a +2 to Dex, +2 to Intelligence, -2 to Charisma. But your actual race is what dictates how many hit points you have, at least to start. And then you get, as you would expect, a variety of different abilities, just like every other thing is. Androids are constructed, so they get a +2 racial bonus against disease, mind-affecting effects, poison, sleep, unless there's something that specifically targets constructs. They have low light vision out to 60 feet. They have a -2 to sense motive checks, but sense motive checks on them, the DCs are increased by 2 because they're androids and they don't really care about emotions. And then because they're upgradable, you can, because you can upgrade armor and things in this game, they're considered to have an upgrade slot in their bodies as if it was like a light armored thing. So they essentially have a free upgrade space that they can put something in. So I think that's pretty cool. I like that that mechanic, because it's not something that actually exists in 5th edition. There's no way to, oh, well, let me make this thing better, sort of making it magical.
So, was that just an example, or you didn't want? Did you want to go into all the races, or did you want to head on the classes?
I mean, I think classes are going to take a lot more time.
Give an overview of them.
So it's 12:40. I think. Are we going to stick through to our typical thing and do a roll call, or
No,
do we skip it? All right. So sorry guys, no roll call today, because we're gonna get heavily into Starfinder some more, since we're down on time. So voila, we have classes, and 7 seems to be their pretty strong number here. We have Envoy, Mechanic, Mystic, Operative, Solarian, Soldier, and Technomancer. So Nate and I were kind of discussing this offline, and this is one of those things where it's pretty interesting, because a lot of these classes don't correspond directly to any previous class that's out there. How do you feel about that, Nate?
That's one of the things I like the best, actually, is I looked at the Envoy, and when I started reading the Envoy, I was like, oh, it's kind of like a rogue. And then I'm like, oh, wait, but it gets all these fighter powers like some kind of battle master. I'm like, but then it also has all this negotiating politics possibilities, like a bard. It's like a future bard, but it's also a fighter, but it's also this. So I was like, I'm just going to try and stop. I'm just going to stop comparing it to fantasy D&D. It's not going to work.
So you have to look at the fact that once technology enters into the fray, the world changes. In 5th edition, or in fantasy, the bulk of what you have going on is people in a little bit of armor with a little bit of weapon training that are going to do the bulk of your fighting. Well, anytime technology advances to such a degree that you're traveling the stars and colonizing places with that technology, comes a whole new development. So your soldier, your person who is going to do the fighting, they're going to be strapping on armor, but instead of pulling out some kind of melee weapon, the first go-to is usually some kind of big gun. And it's present in Starship Troopers, it's present in Warhammer 40K, it's present in Star Wars with the Stormtroopers. So that's going to be your soldier. This is the person who is heavily lined for war. So they're going to get heavy armor, which I actually think they're the only ones that do. And then of course they're going to have all the weapons. So they're your fighter, but the style fighter is very different in a sci-fi game than your typical fantasy game. Nate kind of touched on Envoy, and you could loosely say it might be your battle bard, but it's got so many different things that it could do, it does kind of break away from that. the mechanic an absolute necessity where technology is involved, like the closest thing you could possibly consider that one to be in a fantasy thing might be like an alchemist because they tinker with tools and things. But there's no actual alchemist class in fifth edition, so there's really no corollary to 5e. We move on to mystic, and you could loosely say that this is your cleric, but in so many ways it's not. It's just so very different in in the spectrum of what the universe has to offer that like I don't think there's any kind of corollary. And it does say, often through a focus of divine or intuitive understanding of biological systems.
Yeah, this is like a mashup of like it's like the mashup of psionics, monk, not like the fighting aspect so much, but the other things you get from monk, and like maybe a little bit of cleric kind of feel to it. So again, it's like when you start describing a class as 3 or more classes, it's kind of like, well, they're not really useful descriptive wise.
Mm. So next we move on to operative. Now, having had time to actually sit and look at the classes as opposed to just the brief concept of make a character for this game, I like I'm leaning heavily towards wanting to make an operative. I think they're far more intriguing to me than the other classes. And at first, the onset is like, oh well, this is clearly your rogue. This is the skill heavy class that requires stealth. Well, that sounds like it should absolutely be a rogue. But when you start to like look down at other things that they can do, they're definitely more you know in line to be more like a fighting rogue. So like it
Like
doesn't it
special
doesn't
forces.
yeah, like that's what it would be. Like you're talking about someone who would be on a special forces team, and no one looks at them and says, oh well, those guys are rogues. Like they're so like here you kind of have a mixture of fighter, ranger, and rogue, mixed in. So Solarian, this is what I actually played in the promo game and really enjoyed it. I love the theme of what's there, and maybe the race and class I chose didn't really mix well together, or whatever have you. But I didn't feel that was up to the snuff of what everyone else was doing. But the Solarian contemplates and gains power from the life cycle of stars. His techniques allow him to create a weapon or suit of armor from a mote of stellar energy. And depending upon what type of energy you're using, dictates what the thing looks like. And of course, whether you've chosen weapon or armor dictates, what it is and what it does for you. Uh, I thought it was cooler to look like I had a magic weapon than than to have the armor, but I think the armor is actually a more powerful option. So I don't know how how other people who have looked at or managed to play Solarians have looked at, but that's my feedback on actually having played one for a session. And then last but not least is our Technomancer. Oh, sorry. Well, let's complete more on Solarian. We actually had a conversation with Owen, the guy who ran the promo game. We had him on for a live chat afterwards. And it was very interesting because the Solarian, it does consider like strength and charisma as your prime stats because charisma affects your magic aspects of your your motes of energy, but at the same time, uh, Owen thought it more of a fighting class, so he saw it more as a ranger. I saw it more as a paladin because you're getting energy from somewhere else. You know, the celestial bodies sometimes are referred to as divine. So I'm like, oh, well, this is a paladin. You got strength, charisma. That's clearly what it's got to be. So it's very interesting to see the different dynamics of, not dynamics, but the different interpretations of, you know, the two, you know, the two of us, and how we saw that class reacting to the other sets.
And I in the chat have come up with Star Druid Jedi Lantern as description for the Solarian.
Star Jedi Druid Lantern. Okay, nice. I'll have to jot that one down and, you know, use that somewhere. So then, getting back to what I said, last but not least is the Technomancer. Now here, the Technomancer understands connections between technology and magic and exploits them by bending reality to suit her needs. Now, of all of the descriptions, that, in my opinion, is by far the most cool and powerful. Bending reality to suit her needs. I mean, come on, man. Who doesn't want to be able to do that? So there's a lot of fun stuff that's there.
You still totally skipped Soldier.
No, I said Soldier first.
Oh, you went over Soldier first. Oh, I missed that part. Well, we're rounding out on the hour. Is there anything else that we'd want to kind of get out there about Starfinder?
Well,
where to find Starfinder first?
Well, I said this in the beginning, but in case you tuned in late, should you be looking to get Starfinder or any of the, you know, other many Starfinder products that are going to be coming out between now and the end of the year, the link is in the description below. Again, I will point out that it is an affiliate link. You'll still get your, you know, great Amazon price, and we get a small, you know, portion of that sale. So I don't know whether any of you guys have managed to, you know, pick it up yet, whether you've seen other people talking about it. You know, are you guys excited to be able to play Starfinder? I know Dave's copy is, you know, in the mail. I've already got the PDF here, and it's just, it's just, as I said, it's an amazing set of art. It's a great set of rules. Having played, you know, a handful of Spelljammer sessions with Dave, that's Spelljammer, as Dave is running, is literally just D&D in space. You know, there's no technology to actually work with, whereas Starfinder, you know, it incorporates all of that technology. So it's a great way to actually get into that nitty gritty, and the rule set is there, and some people I know, you know, run away from Pathfinder because they've enjoyed the rules light stuff of 5th edition, but there's nothing to say that you couldn't, like, tone down and allow some of the more 5th edition isms into a Starfinder game or into a Pathfinder game.
Oh, I wanted to quickly kind of share a bit of the
art,
the spaceship stuff, since I feel like,
absolutely.
I mean, you know, we were talking about D&D in space. Is like it's a pretty big deal. So let's see. Hopefully, I'm doing this right. Okay, so just to give you, we're doing a quick overview. This could be just, we could probably take a few of these ships and go an hour and talk about them. So let's try and find the beginning of this. That's not faster. So as you can see, I'm kind of zipping through the different ships. So there's a lot of awesome art for this. And they all have, here, we'll just stop at this one because it's kind of creepy and cool looking. So the Blackwind Sepulcher, pretty awesome name. And gives you and Death's Head Necro Glider. And so here's the ship, and it talks about the crew, the power core, the type of systems it has on it. You can say like MK3 defenses. That's going to be someplace else. Whether or not it can be expanded. All the, like, what tier it is. They got like the tier 14, tier 5, and the different things it has on it. Whether it's the type of engines, different modifiers that go along with it, all the different skills and rankings for things, and then what it can attack with on different parts of it. So as you can see, it's got port, starboard, forward, all these different uh, um, basically regions that it can attack when it's either traveling around or moving around. It's got the hit points and everything, what's required to hit it, all that kind of stuff. And
now, let me jump in real quick. We didn't actually do any ship-to-ship battle in our promo game. That's one of the things that was a little sad. The system is really cool, and you can see from those amazing ships that Nate's sharing that they've really put a lot of thought into that. So I can't really comment as to whether the ship-to-ship battle is better or worse than, say, the Star Wars FFG system. I will touch one thing on combat that I wanted to share that I thought was amazing is your actual armors that you can buy actually have like a melee rating and an energy rating. So you actually have two distinct armor classes. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and here's some just example type of maneuvers that you can be expected to do. And I know that there's going to be checks for these. So that's when the ace pilot comes in handy, because as they gain levels, they don't, even if they fail, they don't catastrophically fail things as much. So there's things that'll come up, and here's some just different maneuvers and what they give you, and you're on the hex grid. Yeah, Azerf Gaming. It sounds complicated. I bet it is until you learn how it goes. Because, well, let's say in comparison, the storytelling dice in Fantasy Flight game for Star Wars, that is more of like you're rolling dice and then describing what happened. Rather, this is going to be a higher level, more like miniatures game involved. You know what I mean? Like I would think that this would be one of the harder things to do theater of the mind with, because of all the things you'd have to control, even if you only had a couple ships each. And it talks about speed, the different speeds, the stunts, the piloting checks involved in the speed, and then all the different, like what you get for all the different maneuvers that it just showed. So there's quite a lot. It's basically like you've got another set of rules for combat in ships and what happens when they get damaged. The difference between things like getting a critical hit and what it does to different systems. So you have this critical hit here and the chance of doing different things like damage to weapon array, engines, power core, life support sensors. So it's got that kind of, it's got that space combat feel. The ship's so huge, a part of it takes damage, and rather than just subtracting from its overall hit points and then later it explodes, it's taking damage gradually to different systems and different functions and getting wrecked and malfunctioning in different ways. And there's mechanic is really useful because that can help fix parts on a ship quickly when needed. So having a mechanic involved could be something that kind of like having a mechanic on your ship can kind of save your ship in really bad times. So, and it talks about crew actions and all the different things that the crew can do as part of their action phase while they're in the ship, rather than, well, I usually swing this stellar axe, so I'm just going to stand here while we're fighting this other ship. There's stuff that you can do and get involved with through that. So that is like super extreme, quick check out of the ship combat stuff and the ships. So I just wanted to share that since it was
so the
winding out Pathfinder, Starfinder.
The book is massive. So like it would actually take a long time to go through and show all the different stuff that's there. But if you look at that link that I previously shared, or that's down below, you'll see that there's actually a lot of stuff that's already planned. So I really feel that Paizo has a lot of confidence in what they're doing with this. And while some people are like, I'm fantasy through and through, this might actually bring other people into a better not a better, but more. It'll bring more people into the RPG community that are willing to try a D20 based system. Somebody might branch out from Star Wars to Starfinder and what have you.
Great question, Red Jackal. Yes, I would say that the ship combat is more like BattleTech, where your mech might get a weapon destroyed or something blasted off and it becomes useless. If your engine hits, you're going to move slower, similar to like if you lose a leg or take a lot of damage to your leg in BattleTech. So I would say it's going to be similar in that aspect.
So that's to poison. I imagine. I haven't actually looked through the section on, scanning and what kind of options you have access to. But I would imagine that you would be able to scan the other person's ship, find out where different zones are, and be able to target engines or munitions or whatever have you. And if the rules don't say that you can, then check your DM. They might say that you can. Because I always think that just blowing up the other guy, that's not enough options for me. There's sometimes it's like, oh well, can we disable them so that we can go in and do a rescue mission, or do a disable their sensors so that we can have a hidden landing party in an invisible pod ship that's going to latch on to go in and do a stealth mission. You don't want to do anything that's actually going to limit your options, in my opinion.
Yeah, I didn't see the express rules for called shots on ships, but there's called shots in Pathfinder, so I'm assuming that it's significant enough. And again, a ship is large enough that
and yes, Red Jackal, take the ship is absolutely another thing that you'd want to be able to do, so that it's like, okay, that's another reward, right? We get to keep the ship and sell it.
I mean, for spacecraft, even in a post-scarcity world where you're like, oh, everything's kind of taken care of, ships are still a tremendous amount of investment of energy and materials and things like that. And this isn't post-scarcity. This is, still, there's the nitty-gritty of people trying to survive in this spacefaring society. So a ship is super valuable, regardless of how many there are in the sky.
Yes, David, that's the game. Building a pirate fleet would be a cool game idea.
Time to build a Death Star.
All right, so we've crossed that threshold. We can get back into more Starfinder once Dave comes back and we figure out what videos we want to do on this. It's a cool system. I'm certain that at some point in time, the Nerdarchy crew will get a Starfinder game going up on the channel. We just have to find somebody who's gonna run it. So with that, until next time, guys, stay nerdy.